What's up, y'all? Welcome to Second and 15, a Philadelphia Eagles fan podcast presented by Olde City Sports Network, the best network for all your Philadelphia sports needs. It's your boy, Michael Roscoe, and what a first 10 practices of camp it has been. After the open practice and some roster moves, along with some injury updates and the upcoming first preseason game this Friday, we got a lot to talk about tonight, but before all of that, if you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe to the channel, which is just at Second and 15, and also turn on notifications so you don't miss a single moment of Second and 15 content. Sports Network. So we got a great show for you tonight, and we're going to dive into that with some NFL news. The NFL has wrapped up their top 100 list of the best players in the league, voted by the players themselves. And this year, we have a new number one. Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes took the title of number one player in the league going into last season. But this year, it is none other than Dolphins wide receiver Tyreek Hill. Rounding up the top five included Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson, 49ers running back Christian McCaffrey, Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes, and Browns edge rusher Myles Garrett. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. Tyreek had 1,800 receiving yards, 13 touchdowns, averaging just over 15 yards a catch. The dude's a speed demon who just seems to be unstoppable on his routes. So congrats to Tyreek and all the other players who made this year's list. In other news, the New York Giants and the Detroit Lions have been slammed with nearly $200,000 worth of fines after multiple scuffles during their joint practice. The league is reminding teams that this kind of behavior won't be tolerated as more joint practices are to come. Who do you think, if anyone, will have the next major scuffle this preseason? All right, before we get into the Eagles news, we're going to bring you some sponsored ads. So Second and 15, a Philadelphia Eagles fan podcast, and Olde City Sports Network are brought to you by Righteous Felon Craft Jerky, with some awesome craft flavors, as well as being gluten-free, low sugar, and American-made. Head to your local store, or better yet, head on over to righteousfelon.com and use promo code OCSN, all lowercase, for 15% off your order. Any orders over $50 will also receive free shipping. We're also brought to you by SeatGeek. Head on over to SeatGeek.com or download the app to get your tickets and use promo code Olde City Sports Network, all one word with E at the end of Old, for $20 off your purchase. Additionally, if you can't make your event, SeatGeek will credit you to your next event. Additionally, we are presented by Warlord Beard Oil. Head on over to warlordbeardoil.com and use promo code Olde Sports in all caps for 15% off your beard oils, washes, soaps, lotions, apparel, tools, and so much more. Orders over $75 will also receive free shipping. And finally, if you love supporting our sponsors as well as other shows on the network, don't forget to support the ones who bring you these ads each and every week, such as yours truly, Second and 15, Quit Chasing, Flyers Alley, The Living Room Show, Check the Net, and more. To do that, head on over to oldcitysports.com and check out our merchandise, from clothes, camping supplies, glassware, and other swag, use promo code OLDCITY, all caps, for 15% off of your purchase. All right. Now, the real reason y'all are here, let's dive into those Eagles news and discussion points. So, starting off with some injury updates. This camp has been not the best when it comes to injuries so far, but everything seems pretty minor. As of right now, safety CJ Gardner Johnson could miss time with a shoulder injury suffered on Tuesday. However, it is said to not be serious, but this time could be missed for precautionary reasons. He did not participate in Wednesday's practice. Safety Mekhi Garner has been dealing with a hamstring injury and did not participate on Wednesday. Linebacker Brandon Smith still dealing with a concussion, with wide receiver Paris Campbell dealing with a groin injury. Both did also not participate on Wednesday. Linebacker Oren Burks still missing practice with a knee injury. He has missed all 10 practices so far. But on the plus side, offensive lineman Cam Jurgens and Tyler Steen are back to practice from their respective injuries. Next up, we got some roster moves, including some that were made just about an hour ago or so. So, some more roster moves have been made as the Eagles have signed tight end Kevin Fulch, claiming him off waivers from the New York Jets. To make room for Fulch, they waived tight end McCallan Castles with an injury waiver. McCallan unfortunately had a leg injury during the Eagles' open practice last week, and watching it in real time, it looked pretty painful. I'm not going to lie to y'all. Hopefully, it's nothing too serious and it doesn't jeopardize his ability to play in the NFL. So, McCallan, thank you for your contribution to Philly. Additionally, the Eagles added to their linebacker depth, signing Shaq Quarterman, who spent the past few seasons in Jacksonville, where he played about 64 games. To make room on the roster for him, the Birds waived guard/center Jason Poe. And just in on Wednesday, the Birds waived wide receiver Shaquan Davis to make room for tight end Armani Rogers, who the Birds claimed off of waivers from the Washington Commanders. All right, next topic. Jalen Hurts in that top 100 that I was mentioned earlier. So, where does Jalen land? I'll tell you. Jalen Hurts has landed at number 15 on the top 100 NFL player list as voted by the players all across the league. Note, this is a vote by the players. I can't tell you how many times I was on like a TikTok live talking about Jalen Hurts ranking and people thought it was my opinion on top overall QBs. And I'm just like, do you all not pay attention? Anyway, he falls 12 spots from number 3 last year, but he ranks above quarterbacks such as Dak Prescott, Brock Purdy, Tua Tagovailoa, CJ Stroud, and Jordan Love. Now, the fact that from an overall player viewpoint, they believe that Jalen Hurts is better than those QBs and more gives me a lot of joy and optimism going into the year. He definitely has a way to go to get back within that top 5 contention, especially with the way Philly collapsed last year, the constant analyst hate he gets from some fucking reason, and just the trendiness that it is to hate the Eagles, thus by association, hate on Jalen Hurts. But I believe the way he's been looking in camp now, he's far exceeded the performance compared to this time last year, and hopefully it translates into the season for the duration of the whole season. I'm praying that my man stays healthy. He deserves that much at the very least. But speaking of Jalen Hurts, Jalen Hurts has been named the Olympic flag football ambassador for the 2028 Summer Games, in which flag football will make its debut. And you couldn't ask for a better one. He's got the talent, the charisma, the character, leadership, determination. You name it, he's got it. By the time 2028 arrives, hopefully he'll have more Pro Bowl years under his belt and maybe a Lombardi trophy or two. One can only hope. All right. Next topic, last week's open practice. So the Eagles open practice at the Link was last week, and I was able to attend the event. And wow, what an experience it was. I got there early enough to get front row seats by the tunnel and just take in the atmosphere with over 50,000 fans in attendance. 50,000 just for a practice? Absolutely amazing. Also, shout out to Brandon Graham, Keely Ringo, Jake Elliott, and Big Dom himself for signing my mini Eagles autism helmet. You know, thank you very much for that. It's highly appreciated. And it was awesome to see myself on various social media, such as Eagles Insider and the Eagles official Instagram pages. Overall, just a wonderful experience. But anyway, we got the chance to see Saquon step on the field at the link for the first time in an Eagles uniform, and it did not disappoint. I saw a lot of things I liked, and I'll talk about some of them, including a lot of motion from the offense, which had a very strong night. I also like the running back room, especially with Saquon dodging numerous tackles for like a big 20-yard gain, as well as Will Shipley demonstrating that Clemson shiftiness, getting a ton of touches between the first and second teams. I also really liked seeing Dallas Goedert, who had a phenomenal night with 3 receiving touchdowns thrown beautifully by Jalen Hurts, as well as wide receiver Britton Covey showing off why he was one of the best punt returners from last year, but also making a strong contention for that wide receiver 3 spot that still seems to be up for grabs despite the depth chart having Paris Campbell there so far. But we also can't rule out 6th-round draft pick wide receiver Johnny Wilson using his 6'6" frame and overall athletic abilities to make his claim at that wide receiver 3 spot. And this in particular was bizarre, but I kind of liked it. We saw Bryce Huff dropping into coverage. He's an outside linebacker, defensive end, edge rusher, whatever you want to call it. They don't typically drop into coverage, but we saw him dropping into coverage and nearly picking off Jalen Hurts. However, he could not secure the catch. Now, I don't think that's necessarily a bad move from Hurts since his decision making and pass attempts have been fantastic thus far in camp, but more so a great move by Huff slash the Fangio defensive scheme by testing out just different things and seeing what works. Additionally, on the defense, Jalen Carter continues to dominate in camp, pushing off 50 plus pound dudes and getting to the quarterback like it's nothing. And so much more this time around. I can think of more things that I liked versus disliked this year. And overall, I'm very happy to see the success of the team in practice that night. All right, we finally have some Eagles football this week. That's right, the Eagles will have their first preseason game against the Ravens, just like they did last year for some reason. The game will start this Friday at 7:30 p.m. and will enter this game as the 5th best team heading into the preseason, according to NFL.com. Now, realistically, I don't anticipate like any of our starters playing these games. So this will be a good opportunity for the rookies and those bubble guys to get a chance to prove themselves as to why they deserve a roster spot. Here's a few, not all, but a few of the things that I'm hoping to see in this first preseason game. The new offense against another team's defense is my first. Now, granted, this is just a preseason game, but the team will be going against a team that has won their last 24 consecutive preseason games. I don't know what it is about the Ravens and their preseason streak. Hopefully, we can end it this time, but that's for another day. So, if our guys in our new offense make it difficult for them, even if we lose, it'll give me optimism going into week 1 when we play our starters. Kellen Moore's offense has already looked better than what we saw last year, and it'll be exciting to see it against another team. As with the defense, I'm excited to see this Vic Fangio defense with a very young athletic personnel against an opposing offense. Vic Fangio has nearly 40 decades of NFL experience and was a consultant for the team for a few weeks during the 2022 Super Bowl run season. And now with him taking the reins, I'm excited to see this defense in action. What I'm also excited to see is Will Shipley as a dual threat running back. He's been taking significant snaps, not only with the second team, but with the first team as well. What I'm also looking forward to see the Kenny Pickett versus Tanner McKee battle. I feel like I saw a lot of this last year with Tanner McKee versus our QB2 Marcus Mariota at the time, but we've been seeing Tanner take significant quarterback 2 reps this offseason, an offseason where we picked up former first rounder Kenny Pickett with the expectation to be the QB2 behind Hurts. According to offensive coordinator Kellen Moore, both Pickett and McKee have had great camps in their own unique ways. So I'm curious to see if McKee will dethrone Pickett for that QB2 spot. We'll have a semi experienced veteran in Pickett versus a sixth round pick in McKee, who hasn't played a regular season down in the NFL so far. Now, Marcus has much more experience than Pickett, yet both were in this situation with Tanner McKee between last year and this year. I'm not saying I don't believe in Tanner McKee. I think he's a good quarterback, could develop into a great one in coming years. Personally, I'd rather have someone with regular season experience at the quarterback 2 spot, but who knows, honestly. McKee has been putting in the work, and if he's doing better than Kenny Pickett, then I'd pick McKee over Pickett to be that QB2. I'm also excited to see our first round draft pick, Quinyon Mitchell. Not with anything specific, just him overall. Like, I was hyped for him before he even got drafted. He's been having an excellent camp, taking reps both in the slot and outside cornerback positions. So I'm definitely curious and excited to see where he'll be at during this preseason game, especially with second round pick Cooper DeJean not expected to play in the first, maybe second preseason games, as we've seen him take the majority of his reps before his injury in the slot cornerback position. Now, y'all might clown me for this, but I'm more so curious, but a little excited to see James Bradbury at safety. Now, I know he's had a rough offseason and a rough start to training camp, but various reports have been stating that he's been doing well with the second team safeties, as well as taking first team reps with CJ Garner Johnson not practicing. When I originally heard this switch from corner to safety, it gained my interest. I'll say that for sure. We've seen players fail miserably, but also players have success at position switches. And considering Bradbury's abysmal 2023 season, I can't imagine it getting worse than that. So I'm definitely going to be paying attention to Bradbury at this position, especially with his coverage, tackling, and overall field awareness, because all of those definitely needed some work from last season. All right, moving on to our final subject of the episode, the article. I hope y'all know what I'm talking about. If you don't, on Wednesday, in an article from Tim McManus and Jeremy Fowler, they dove in deep into the relationship between Jalen Hurts and head coach Nick Sirianni, primarily their relationship from last year. Yes, we are still talking about stuff from last year. Within the article, various direct team sources make statements regarding the whole relationship. For example, one source stated that the relationship between Hertz and Sirianni was, quote, fractured and unhealthy. Basically, there were significant vision differences between Sirianni and Hertz slash former offensive coordinator Brian Johnson. Sirianni had this if it ain't broke, don't fix it mentality since their 2022 campaign was such a success, while Hertz and Johnson wanted to expand upon it and occasionally did rogue plays after Sirianni would overrule some offensive decisions. In a press conference later that day, Nick Sirianni took full responsibility for the collapse, stating the quote, last year was on me, on my shoulders. I didn't get it done. A source from that press conference stated, he showed leadership, and it was like a breath of fresh air. If you haven't read it, it's worth the read. I highly suggest it. What I take from this article was that Sirianni was the guy who probably should have received more blame than Brian Johnson. And I know I've blamed Brian Johnson for a lot of things in earlier episodes, but ultimately it seems like Sirianni was more so the blame for the collapse. But alas, it's a team effort. The team collapsed, not any one person. However, this is what I think of this overall situation between Hertz and Sirianni. We got the closure. Now, It's time to move on. Just move on. I feel like I've heard this whole Hurt Sirianni debacle for several months now. We're in the new season. We're in the new season, and let the past be the past. And we need to look forward. There's a reason the front windshield is bigger than the rearview mirror. Let's just move on. Hurts and Sirianni may not be buddy best friends like Hurts and AJ Brown are, but there does not seem to be hatred or animosity towards one another. Why dwell on what was instead of focusing on what can be? With Kellen Moore taking command of the offense and Nick dialing himself back, it shows accountability, it shows trust in others, and it shows the attempt to amend a relationship that was at its worst point. As Eagle fans, we have our opinions on the past, what went wrong, yada, yada, yada. We need to stop that. There is so much to look forward to this season between a significant improvement from Hurts in camp, the massive changes to the offense and defense, all these offseason acquisitions, you name it. There's so much to look forward to that one thing is just not worth looking back on. Let's just move on. Well, on that note, this actually concludes this week's episode. Thank you very much for joining me for this and every episode. Each and every week, your support is truly appreciated. Next week, we're going to look into what happened during that Eagles Ravens preseason game. Hopefully, more good than bad, as well as the other Eagles news that will come throughout the course of the week. I hope you all have a great weekend. Don't forget to stay fly like an eagle. And as always, go birds.